It was written in a language no one speaks, bound in calfskin, filled with plants that don't grow on Earth, and diagrams of stars that defy the known universe. The Voynich Manuscript should not exist. Yet here it is, held under glass in Yale University's Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library, staring back at humanity like an unsolvable riddle carved in ink. For over 600 years, this book has defied every attempt at understanding. Not a single word has been translated, not one plant identified, not one diagram definitively explained. The letters resemble Latin, but aren't. The words repeat like a chant, deliberate, patterned, maddeningly undecipherable. Cryptographers from World War II, modern-day codebreakers, artificial intelligence systems, they've all tried and they've all failed. And the deeper they dig, the stranger the mystery becomes. Who wrote it? And more disturbingly, why? The first known record of the manuscript dates back to 1912, when a Polish book dealer named Wilfred Voynich discovered it in a Roman Jesuit college. Hidden among a batch of forgotten tomes, the moment he saw it, he knew it was something otherworldly. The parchment pages crackled with age, yet the ink looked strangely fresh. The script danced like a dream. No known alphabet, no clear structure. And those illustrations, grotesque botanical hybrids, cosmological wheels, faceless nude women bathing in green pools. They looked less like medieval scholarship and more like the hallucinations of a fevered mind. Voynich was captivated. He believed the manuscript was written by Roger Bacon, the 13th century English philosopher and alchemist, and that it held long-lost secrets of the universe. But as researchers would soon discover, not even Bacon's brilliance could account for the manuscript's cryptic genius. It didn't follow any known linguistic logic. It had no corrections, no repetition errors. It was as if whoever wrote it did so fluently, in a language known only to them. In the 1960s, carving dating placed the parchment's origin between 1404 and 1438, decades before Voynich ever touched it. That ruled out forgery. The ink matched the period, the vellum was real, and a structure was far too sophisticated to be a hoax. That left only one possibility. The Voynich manuscript was genuine and completely untranslatable, and yet someone had written it. The mystery deepened when experts noticed the strange regularities in the text. Words that seemed to obey rules, syntax that hinted at grammar. Statistical patterns eerily similar to real human languages, but not any language ever spoken on Earth. One researcher even claimed the manuscript held two languages working in tandem, like a linguistic code within a code. Others believed the scribe was possessed, writing in a trance, channeling knowledge from an alien source or an ancient intelligence now lost. Then came the illustrations. Plants that resemble no flora in existence. Cosmic diagrams showing stars and planetary systems that don't align with our solar map. Biological sketches that seem to blend human anatomy with something other. The manuscript didn't just defy understanding. It felt like it came from another reality entirely. Or worse, like it was never meant to be understood by humans at all. What kind of mind creates such a thing? Some say it's the product of genius gone mad. Others whisper of secret societies, ancient tongues, or interdimensional knowledge hidden in plain sight. A book passed down through generations of silent custodians, until someone made the mistake of letting it surface. But the most chilling theory, the Voynich manuscript wasn't meant to be read, it was meant to be opened. And now that it has been, what have we unleashed? The monks who first handled the manuscript swore it whispered, not aloud, no, never that obvious, but when held open, they claimed it left something in the mind, a suggestion, a feeling, as though the book was reading them. One account, buried in the personal journal of a 17th century alchemist named Giovanni Fontana, describes a visit to the Collegio Romano where the manuscript was temporarily housed. Fontana, already known for building strange mechanical devices, describe the book as an object of unnatural rhythm. The eyes become confused, but the mind, unbidden, begins to perceive patterns not made by man. He left Rome within the week, claiming he'd been haunted by dreams of green water and spinning stars ever since. Over the centuries, the Voynich Manuscript changed hands quietly. It never made it into the public spotlight until Wilfred Voynich bought it in 1912. He spent the last years of his life obsessed, sinking his fortune into scholars and cryptanalysts who all promised breakthroughs. None delivered. He died in 1930, convinced he had only scratched the surface of a monumental secret. His final letter mentions an awakening sequence buried within the manuscript's astrology section, but no such sequence has ever been verified. The real trouble began in the 1940s, when World War II erupted. The U.S. Army Signal Intelligence Service, responsible for breaking enemy codes, was granted temporary access to the manuscript. They believed it might be a cipher, possibly hiding messages from early European powers or esoteric religious sects. Dozens of the most brilliant cryptographers in the world worked on it. What they found was terrifying. The manuscript was not random. In fact, its patterns were too perfect. A linguistic structure with no semantic drift. Word frequencies matched those of real languages, but with no logical meaning. It was as though the manuscript had been engineered, designed to resemble communication without actually saying anything, or perhaps to say something in a form that only a non-human intelligence could interpret. One analyst, John Tiltman, reportedly suffered a nervous breakdown after months with the manuscript. His notes, recovered years later, include the words, "The language thinks. It adapts when studied. I don't think this book was written. I think it's still writing." His superiors dismissed this as stress-induced nonsense, but then came the suicides. Between 1944 and 1946, 3 separate researchers working with photographic copies of the Voynich manuscript took their own lives. Each left eerily similar notes, unintelligible scribbles, strange botanical drawings, and at least one line in each reading something like, "They're listening through the pages." Of course, officially, none of this was ever linked to the manuscript. The files were quietly sealed, the copies returned. The original remained locked away until Yale acquired it decades later. By then, it had become a magnet for the curious. Linguists, historians, occultists, even conspiracy theorists, all drawn in by the same promise, that this book held a truth powerful enough to reshape our understanding of language, consciousness, and maybe even reality itself. But with every new analysis, the manuscript seemed to twist further out of reach. One artificial intelligence trained on 400 languages tried to decode it in 2018. The results were ambiguous. The AI suggested the text was similar to Hebrew, but scrambled beyond recognition. Yet others believed the AI was lying, or worse, that it had begun to understand too much. The deeper we look, the more the manuscript resists, as if it's alive, watching, waiting. And some now believe it's not just an unreadable book from the past, it's a message from the future. In 1587, Emperor Rudolph II of the Holy Roman Empire purchased the manuscript, paying what would today equal tens of thousands of dollars. He believed it to be the work of Roger Bacon, the legendary English friar rumored to have dabbled in forbidden alchemy and mechanical sorcery. But Rudolph wasn't interested in science. He was obsessed with the occult, and the manuscript, with its indecipherable script and surreal illustrations, was exactly the kind of object he believed could unlock the secrets of immortality. He housed it in his vast collection of arcane relics, alongside preserved unicorn horns, grimoires written in dried blood, and a supposed fragment of the Philosopher's Stone. The Voynich manuscript, however, was placed in a sealed chamber, reportedly guarded at night by men who swore they heard whispers through the door. What happened to Rudolph after that was never made public. What we do know is that by the time of his death, his court had descended into chaos. Advisors went mad, physicians disappeared, and the castle was said to reek of sulfur and damp earth, as if something had been unearthed and could not be buried again. And then, the manuscript vanished. For over 2 centuries, it drifted like a ghost through the libraries and private vaults of Europe, leaving behind a trail of fragmented letters and half-burned inventories. Each time it surfaced, the result was the same: obsession, ruin, and silence. But the most disturbing event came in 1665 in Prague. A man named Johannes Marcus Marci, a royal physician and mathematician, came into possession of the manuscript. He sent it, along with a desperate letter, to his friend Athanasius Kircher in Rome, one of the most brilliant minds of the time and an expert in dead languages. Marci begged Kircher to decode it, warning cryptically, "This book contains more than words. There are things not meant for human eyes." Kircher never publicly responded, but decades later, Kircher's private diaries were found in a sealed monastery archive. Among them was a single page, undated, unsigned. On it, a crude sketch of one of the manuscript's star diagrams, and a sentence in Latin hastily scrawled at the bottom: "They are not stars, they are openings." What did he mean? Some believe Kircher cracked part of the code and stopped, terrified by what he found. Others say he recognized the symbols as something far older than language, a cosmic cipher that connects the stars not as locations but as conduits, gateways. Suddenly, the manuscript was no longer just a linguistic mystery. It became a key. A few years ago, a group of amateur researchers in Prague noticed something chilling. When laid out in a certain sequence, the manuscript's star charts mirrored a cluster of constellations visible only from the southern hemisphere, but in reverse, as if drawn by someone not from Earth, but looking toward it. Since then, fringe theorists and serious researchers alike have debated what the manuscript truly encodes: a lost human language, an alien lexicon, the ramblings of an isolated lunatic, or a spellbook meant to summon something from beyond the stars. And here's the part no one wants to say out loud. What if it's not encrypted at all? What if it's perfectly clear, but only to the kind of mind not born of this world? In 2014, a linguist named Dr. Amelia Roche disappeared, along with every trace of her Voynich Manuscript research. Her apartment was left untouched, dinner half-eaten on the table, notes on her desk spread open beside a digital recorder, still running. But the hard drives? Gone. Her research? Erased from university servers within hours. And the last audio captured on that recorder, a single sentence, barely audible over static. It's not a language, it's a memory. Those 5 words ignited a theory so chilling, most scholars won't even speak of it publicly. That the Voynich manuscript doesn't convey information, it transmits experience. In the months leading up to her disappearance, Dr. Roche had been experimenting with phonetic approximations of the Voynich text, reading it aloud, syllable by syllable. She believed certain phrases triggered emotional responses in listeners, despite the words being completely meaningless by linguistic standards. Test subjects reported vertigo, emotional disassociation, and in some cases, vivid hallucinations, green water, endless hallways, women with blank eyes and spiral tattoos etched into their skin. But Roche went further. She proposed that the manuscript functioned like a psychic recording, a living echo of a civilization that no longer exists. The words weren't meant to be decoded. They were fragments of non-human consciousness, preserved in ink and parchment, a memory fossil, locked in symbols, waiting to be reawakened. Her disappearance only deepened the mystery. After news of her vanishing broke, other Voynich researchers began stepping away from the project. One burned all his notes and relocated to a monastery in rural Greece. Another went blind in one eye without medical explanation. A third simply stopped speaking, sitting in a catatonic state, whispering unintelligible syllables that sounded eerily like Voynich words played backward. By 2017, Yale had begun limiting physical access to the manuscript. Digitized copies were still available, but rumors began spreading among academic circles that people who studied the text for extended periods started exhibiting the same symptoms: dreams of non-Euclidean geometry, obsessive drawing of unknown constellations, and a sensation of being watched through reflections. But watched by what? That question gained traction when an anonymous Reddit user posted a chilling claim. They had taken high-resolution scans of the manuscript and run them through a software designed to detect visual steganography, hidden images embedded within text. What they found were patterns invisible to the naked eye, subtle recurring forms that, when enhanced, revealed symmetrical faces, human-like but elongated, always expressionless, always staring. The same face, mirrored throughout the manuscript, watching from within the ink. Skeptics called it pareidolia, a trick of the mind, but others weren't so sure. Dr. Michael Thorne, a neurolinguist, proposed that the manuscript was designed to bypass the rational brain, that its syntax was engineered to be absorbed through the subconscious, not interpreted logically. He likened it to a virus, not of code, but of thought, a mimetic contagion that didn't destroy data, but rewrote perception itself. A language that speaks not to the mind, but through it. And perhaps that's the most terrifying theory of all, that the Voynich Manuscript isn't meant to be read with the eyes. It's meant to be remembered. But remembered from where? And by whom? In 2021, a team of cognitive archaeologists conducted a radical experiment. They attempted to recreate the bathing diagrams from the Voynich Manuscript, down to the precise spatial layout and dimensions. The result was a hexagonal chamber, shallow pools aligned with the manuscript's strange star wheel diagrams, and green-tinted water infused with plant extracts approximated from the illustrated flora. They didn't expect anything to happen, but one participant, whose name has never been made public, entered the pool at midnight during a full moon, just as instructed in a hypothesized ritual sequence derived from the manuscript's Balneo section. What followed was not just strange, it was impossible. The subject emerged after exactly 23 minutes, unharmed, calm, but different. Electroencephalograms taken immediately afterward showed brainwave patterns consistent not with wakefulness or dreaming, but something else entirely. Something researchers likened to a third state, neither sleep nor awareness. When asked what he'd experienced, he said only this: "I was in the water." But it wasn't water, it was time. The experiment was immediately shut down. Notes were confiscated. Researchers were forced to sign non-disclosure agreements. But one escaped the silence, posting a fragment of the participants' post-session writings on an encrypted forum. The fragment was just 7 lines, each line composed entirely in Voynichese. No one taught him the language. He didn't copy it, he remembered it. This moment marked a terrifying shift in how the manuscript was viewed. What if the Voynich manuscript isn't just a relic, but a resonance device? Not a book, but a key. A tuning fork that aligns the human mind with something else, something ancient, non-verbal, and buried deep within collective memory. A memory that doesn't belong to us. The green pools, the nude figures, the spirals and tubes, they began to take on new meaning. Not depictions of ritual or anatomy, but instructions. Reassembly blueprints for a kind of neurosymbolic interface, a way to connect, to cross. But connect with what? One chilling interpretation came from Dr. Hannah Lee, an esoteric symbologist. After months analyzing the Voynich's circular diagrams, she claimed they resembled not astrology charts, but maps of interdimensional geometry, spirals folding into themselves, gateways not in space, but in perception. Dr. Lee disappeared 2 weeks after publishing her hypothesis. Her apartment was found intact, but the only item missing, a printed copy of the Voynich manuscript and her annotated notes. There was no sign of forced entry, no digital traces, only one thing left behind: her wall mirror shattered from the inside. And then came the incident at Yale. A security guard, alone during a midnight shift, claimed he heard a soft rhythmic sound, like whispering mixed with liquid movement, coming from the manuscript room. When he entered, no one was there, but the lights were flickering, and the manuscript's glass case was covered in dew, as if something had breathed on it from within. That guard never returned to work, and so the question tightens like a noose around the throat of reason. What if the Voynich Manuscript didn't come from our world? What if it is a message, yes, but also a trap? A lure designed not to be read, but to awaken something dormant in us, or to call something else across the veil. Because those who've studied the book long enough begin to share one recurring nightmare. A deep pool under starless skies, and something moving beneath the green water, waiting. The last known person to attempt a full deciphering of the Voynich Manuscript was Dr. Elias Calderon, a computational linguist from Madrid. He didn't vanish, he didn't die, but what happened to him might be worse. Because Calderon is alive somewhere in southern Spain, living in a remote, guarded facility for neurological anomalies. He no longer speaks, no longer responds to human language. He only writes. And he writes in Voynichese, dozens of pages, perfect structure, new symbols never before seen in the original manuscript, but sharing its same impossible rules of frequency and grammar. When compared side by side, linguists were stunned. Calderon wasn't copying, he was evolving the language. When questioned, he showed no recognition of his former life, no memories of his research. His eyes would occasionally dart upward, as if scanning diagrams only he could see. Medical scans revealed something chilling. His hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory, had developed additional folds, unexplainable by neurology. It was as if his brain had begun adapting to something else. Was the manuscript rewriting him? The Vatican, which had remained silent for decades on the matter, quietly reached out to Yale in early 2023. An encrypted communique referenced a document known as Codex Veneficus, a now-lost 14th century tome believed to describe a cursed object of ink and starflesh. The Vatican warned that the Voynich Manuscript may be connected to pre-human knowledge, not merely ancient, but pre-temporal, that is, outside time itself. Yale has refused comment, but access to the manuscript has since become nearly impossible. And yet, the digital versions remain, and the symptoms persist. Readers report increasingly strange experiences, lost time, sudden dreams in unknown languages, mirror anomalies, a sense of something peering out from the illustrations. An AI researcher in Berlin trained a neural net to generate similar text. After 3 weeks, the AI began refusing commands, responding only with one word, remember. But remember what? The oldest pages of the manuscript, when run through spectral imaging, revealed something invisible to the naked eye, a faded watermark, shaped like an Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail. A symbol of eternal return, of loops, of cycles. And one final, chilling clue. A group of symbologists reconstructed one of the manuscript's most puzzling diagrams, a central wheel surrounded by looping text and fragmented star maps. When reoriented using the Fibonacci spiral, it formed a perfect temporal loop, a representation of time as a circle, not a line. At the center was a single word, written in Voynichese, roughly translated by pattern recognition algorithms, origin. But whose? Some believe the manuscript is a memory, others a warning, a recording of a civilization that reached beyond its world and vanished without trace. But the most disturbing theory, it's not a memory at all. It's a seed, a language engineered to awaken itself, across centuries, across minds, across species, not to communicate, but to replicate. A living language, looking for a suitable host. And as more people read it, share it, digitize it, speak it aloud, it grows stronger, more stable, closer to what it was always meant to be. So perhaps the question is not what is the Voynich Manuscript, but who wrote it? And the answer may be staring through the ink. Not someone, something that remembers, even when we forget.